Today, I would like to welcome my guest, David Clayton, all the way from Adelaide in South Australia. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Alicia. Glad to be here.
So excited to have you on as our podcast guest today. Would you be able to share with us a little bit about who you are and your business, and give the listeners a bit of context to what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a full-time massage therapist now for 5 years. I massaged privately and part-time and more as a hobby for probably 15 to 16 years prior to that, before making the leap out of a secure day job into running my business. It started out as a small solo practice running out of a room in my house as a sole trader, eventually expanding into leased premises, and at one point having 2 staff working for me. And it's gone through a few little structural changes, including registration as a company now. But our focus, whenever I speak to someone about massage, they go, "Oh, you should work with sporting clubs." It's like, boring. No, we don't do that here. As much as it would be a very obvious thing to do, we work a lot with humans who are often vulnerable, often with chronic and complex health conditions. We treat them very, very sensitively and respectfully. We work with some quite vulnerable areas of the community. And our specialism really is on, if I were to go a little bit religious on that, would be to say, focusing on the least of these, his eyes on the sparrow.
And it is you have such a beautiful energy for that. As somebody that has traveled interstate for treatment from your beautiful self, you hold that space so beautifully for, sometimes marginalized people. And it's such an interesting and unique niche. In my position, I have the opportunity to talk to thousands of therapists, and I'm always interested in people's niche and who they love, who they love to work with, like who they really enjoy working with. And I remember being really just like, wow, that is such a cool people group to be working with in the way that you approach it. You are, in your own words, if I can quote David Clayton here, that you're not a crash and bash therapist. What kind of therapies do you practice?
Yeah. I like to say that I learned all of my massage skills from watching cooking shows. And if you think about the toughest piece of meat, you give it the most amount of time in the oven for it to become tender. So we work very slowly with people, slowly and respectfully. It's like massaging the crackling for pork. to slowly tenderize people. But the various skills that we employ come out of the work of John Barnes. He works with myofascial release and also craniosacral therapy, and a healthy dose of massage sloth from the United States. Yeah, the slower that we go, the better.
Love that. What kind of got you into that sort of slow, gentle approach to bodywork? Coming from corporate land, what was the kind of hinge that opened the big doors for you?
Yeah, so my interest in massage goes back a very, very long way. I was a martial artist, and in the field of jujitsu, samurai would often practice bodywork, and acupressure is just one of those things that often be scholars, poets, educated people. They're often healers in their community, and part of my exploration of the arts was to look into massage. So I've kept that passion for 20 odd years, but I did start out in that very heavy style of massage, and it's like, you've got to force the change. Sometimes you need to yell at the child to make them do what you want, which, as a parent now, I know is utter rubbish. But it was when I went back to study. My son was 2 years old. I was starting to explore a career change, but more I was just looking for excitement. And to my massage school, wonderful school, wonderful teachers, and my mentor said to me, I think you'll like this myo stuff. And I read into it, thought, this sounds like a bunch of woo-woo crap, but whatever, I'll give it a go. And I'm sitting in my first class, as they talk about this invisible stuff. And I had an injury at that stage, which just wouldn't pass. It was a whiplash injury, and it plagued me for several years. And it got to the end of the first day. And I've walked out there going, I feel better. They've barely touched me and I feel better. Oh, well, it's not going to last. And it did. So that opened the door for that thirst of, well, maybe if yelling at the child doesn't work, maybe negotiating with it does. And this exploration of this gentle dance of working with the body, following the body's lead. What does it want? What does it need? And just giving the body what it intuitively needs to be able to do the thing that it knows how to do, rather than me having to force change, which I guess has a bit of an ego component to it. It's like, I as a therapist, I've done this. Well, no, you take that approach of facilitator and just allow the body to intuitively do its own thing. And look, it's not for everyone, but for those with those really chronic and those complex cases, sometimes is exactly what it is that they need, just the space to be.
Yeah, and the space to heal and just to be allowed to. I
Permission.
remember working with a beautiful couple of older men in my practice, and look, I can go in with my elbows, and we would joke about something. I had a couple of older people who were like, could you go any further, love? And it's like, my elbow is halfway through you onto my table, my foot is on the wall and I'm shaking, so the answer is no, I can't go any further, love. And also having a couple of older men who came in who'd had surgery later on in life, and they had been told a lot of things by specialists that they would never, and the certainty that they had was, I won't ever do these things again. And I know that if I was to take that kind of, elbow through the glute, foot on the wall approach, it would have scared them, it would have really, really scared them. And so it's like, just start really gently and ease into it. And it was probably my first experience of more that style, using Bowen and craniosacral therapy to just kind of ease in and just work with the body and allow what they needed to come to the surface. And I remember just seeing such a different result with them as I didn't even know what I was doing, but pattern interrupted a lot of things, because I'm like, oh, so how much water do you drink? And like, no, but my surgeon said. And it's like, well, yes, but what can you do for yourself rather than, and I think often in chronic conditions, people's not identity, but their ability to take care of themselves, they give that away intentionally or unintentionally, because other people have told them, oh, by the way, your body now no longer does this, or we've removed this part of your body, and all of a sudden that autonomy that they have for this is how I take care of myself isn't there, and it changes. And I think when you can step into that space quite a bit of humility and just say, well, let's see what your body has to say and work with that. It's such a subtle approach. I also think it's an approach that's not often discussed. I think it's becoming more common now, but I don't think it's something that has always been about.
Yeah, there's a real challenge, because when we talk about the evidence base within massage not being particularly well funded or particularly organized. If you think about how many bodies represent our our profession, there's not a lot of commitment to research. And so things which as therapists may have been practiced for decades or even hundreds of years don't necessarily understand why they work. They just do. So to say that it's an evidence-based, well, practice-based evidence, my experience tells me that this works, but I can't give you the paper to explain what is actually going on. And for a lot of the part, we haven't actually reached that part of understanding it either. So we've got a long way to go.
And it's kind of fun to play in possibility land.
Yeah. Yes. It's been a big mindset challenge for me.
As somebody who likes a lot more certainty than that, is that fair to say?
I've got a science background.
So it even is, I can just imagine sciencey David, arms across his chest, going into this session going, what a load of baloney, to now actually forging a path into this rubbish, as in inverted commas, and I'm using talk marks for those that aren't watching. That's like, and having a full book of clients or people that it actually works on, and that power of intention and playing in possibility land and trusting the process and trusting the client, as well as trusting yourself as a practitioner to just go, and this is where we're going to go with that. And do you ever find yourself treating the same thing 5 different ways on any given day?
Yeah, absolutely. And even with the same person, they'll often come in for the conventional approach. Because I'm a remedial massage therapist, there's this impression of this is what remedial massage is and it's got to hurt. You need to go deeper. I'm affecting your nervous system. How deep do you want me to go? And just saying to them, well, we've tried the conventional approaches. Why don't we try something unconventional and just see if that works? Yeah, rather than just launching into what might be considered as woo to them at that time.
Yeah.
Just trust me on this. We've tried things that usually work. Let's try things that are just different.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that even that approach is still working with the client. Actually working with them on, this is what you asked for, even though I know that probably, in my professional opinion, if we started gentle, it'd probably get a better result. There's no ego here. This is about what it is you want, and you came for remedial massage, so let's apply that.
Yeah.
And then if that doesn't work, here's my toolkit.
Yeah.
Let's get something else out of the toolkit and see if that works.
And the trust is such a big part of being effective as a therapist, and sometimes building that trust is giving them exactly what they want. Even though it isn't what they need. Yeah, so we'll build that trust, build that respect, and then we can do other things.
So good. So you have a lot of experience and wisdom. And I mean, I can say this because I've experienced what you do, gift in the treatment room. Tell us a bit about some of the challenges you face in business, because being an incredibly intuitive practitioner doesn't necessarily mean you have the skill sets for business and how that plays out, the uncertainty of the business landscape. So tell us a bit about some of the challenges that you've experienced over the last 5 years, stepping out of a very certain corporate job and into a small business environment. Tell us a bit about what that's like being, what that's been like for you.
The intuition is one of those really conflicting parts of life, which doesn't really go hand in hand with science. But it played a big part of my corporate role. So things like interviewing other people and getting to the end of an interview and just going, something about that person, we cannot employ that person. Like, why? My gut says. And it would often play out to be true. Or going into a room full of people and just reading the room and going, okay, all right, I can feel something going on. I think we need to be heading in this direction. No, we can't do that approach. It's not going to work. These are humans. It's not going to work. But whilst I say I've got a science background, and I have a degree in science, my work was very much in community services, and specifically in planning for the community. So I held a planning role for a very, very long time. And so I planned the crap out of everything. And with that planning comes risk management, and actively being encouraged to explore everything that can go wrong, to the point that you scare yourself silly. Do I really want to do this? How badly do I want to do this? And I'll get into that business aspect in a moment. It was sitting down with a risk planner once, who was sitting there going, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? A bomb's going to go off. It's like, no. I was running an event on top of a car park, a bit of Beatles style. What if someone gets thrown over the edge? I'm like, oh my God, someone's going to be thrown over the edge. And I had to sit down to myself and say, just imagine this going well. Just imagine it going well. What does this mean for the community? It's like, what's the likelihood of someone being thrown over the edge? Okay, I've planned for that now. I think it's sitting in the corner, sucking my thumb and crying. But we've explored that, all those bad things now what could actually go right about this? And I still do that every day in my business, and even thinking about employing my first staff member. And I've been in front of the tribunal for Fair Work Australia in other roles, and that informs a lot of my trauma in employment. Going, oh, these things can go wrong if I employ another person. And getting to the point of, you know what, in my business, I can choose whoever I want to work for me. No one else has a say in that. And I can choose them based on my intuition. I don't have to have selection criteria. I can just go, I like the feel of this person. And giving myself the permission to trust that aspect of my being and myself. And I've got an employee now who's been with me now for 3 years, fresh out of college. I employed that person because she felt right for my business. And she's been a great match personality wise. And clients will come in and see and go, oh, she's different to you. Yeah, she is. Absolutely, she is. But she's not the same as you. Good. Excellent. She's a nice person. And that's what I wanted. So yes, the whole running a business thing out of certainty and having a salary, and particularly over the last 2 years, I've absolutely craved that, getting up, going to work at 9, finishing at 5, having the paycheck, the same amount in the bank account every time. I certainly haven't missed the environment that I was in, but that whole aspect of, all right, there's been a change of rules. Okay, what do those rules mean this week? I've got 12 hours to implement those rules. Who do I go to for advice? That's me. Excellent. All right, I've just got to do this. There's been a whole lot of, well, there's certainly been a crave for that, like the department which just handles everything. They just tell you what to do. Like, okay, I'm the person that has to tell me what to do, and I have to accept the responsibility for that now. And right now we're in that process again of rules are changing. The rules are very unclear. I have to accept the responsibility. And yes, I do have to accept the responsibility, but I can dictate the rules in my own business. I have that freedom. I've got that power, and I can do that. So I should do that. And I don't have to, and I shouldn't rely on anyone else to tell me what to do, because I don't want the responsibility. That is the responsibility of a business owner. I've got to do it.
And I think in COVID, it has been such an interesting and unique opportunity to learn that, particularly here in Australia. So obviously not all of our listeners are Australian, but in Australia, we have all the different states, and we have a federal government that says, this is kind of what's happening. And then we have a state government who says, I'm not doing that. I'm going to do it my way. And we literally have polar opposites. There's one particular state that, shut the borders, not letting anyone in or out. It's still shut. It's not going to be open till, the 1st of February next year. It's just like, wow, okay. And then we've got other states that are like, we're just going to lock everyone down forever. And I'm in lockdown land / Victoria. South Australia, I would love to go there, but no, they're not letting anyone in either, except if you're in these other states, you might be allowed in for a few weeks here and there. And then we've got to figure out, because we're an unregulated industry, what is our state health department saying? What is our association saying? What is other associations saying? And what is our moral compass?
Yeah.
And we've got to figure out a way through that. And somebody who thrives on uncertainty might love the chaos of that. However, conversely, someone who thrives on certainty is like, as you say, and I think you said a really, something really beautiful about risk management, in terms of, we can look and go, these are all the risks. And so beautifully reframe it to go, good, done that. Now, what are all the good things? What could go well? What could go right? What could the amazing, expansive possibilities be on this side? And because of our negative bias, it's so easy to just go to the risk and go, it's going to be the worst case scenario. I'm going to open up and there could be a bomb underneath my building. Like, holy crap, so scary. What would I do, etc. And it's like, well, yes, but let's face it, it's Adelaide, and it's the possibility of that happening is probably pretty low. And what could happen if I actually trusted my intuition, showed up, loved my clients as they were, gave them what they needed, connected with them, etc. And all of a sudden, these amazing possibilities happen for people. I guess, what are some challenges that you might have faced in running a small business? Hiring was one of them,
Hmm.
um, that you kind of overcame pretty well. What are some other challenges that you've faced throughout the last sort of 5 years in full-time business?
Yeah, um, this last 12 months, there's been two significant things which have come up. One was in May last year. One of a good friend, we studied together at college. When we went into, or when I started my business, he started his business at the same time. We collaborated. We actually hired a room together and operated independently out of that same room before going our separate ways. And over the first lockdown here in Adelaide, we were communicating, checking in with each other, and then just suddenly he disappeared. Wasn't answering his phone, disappeared from Facebook, disappeared from Strava. And my first thought was, has he died? Until he popped up in a news article, and he'd been arrested. And he had initially been arrested on charges of child pornography, child exploitation material, and then later found out that he had been filming his clients within his room. And the huge thing of, this is my friend, had no idea, and we co-treated some people. It's an instant break of therapeutic trust as a male practitioner working with vulnerable people for months, and even to a certain extent now, of, oh my God, this person. It only played out in the courts in August this year, where he's finally sentenced. It's been ongoing for 15 months. This person broke the trust, and that's tarred the industry. It has tarred practitioners, this unregulated or unregistered industry. How could he have been allowed to? How did he get away with it? His own partner didn't even know. So this feeling of, because this is where the overcompensation starts to kick in. I've got to do these things to prevent that no one comes to harm in my practice. So, okay, well, the person who would be doing that harm would be myself. So I just got to not do that thing. And in come the policies, got to develop the policies, got to put these protections in place. And people noticed a change in me and a change in my treatment style, and a real backing off of them. Say, hey, David, what's changed? Things are different today. I'm just not feeling it. So, and I hadn't actually realized how much that impacted how I just approached people. I had to work through those things. I am still working through that to ensure that I am present. Massage changed from being intuitive to being very mechanical. Do the things, protect the things. Everything is utterly professional. Don't talk about the things. Remove all humanity from it, and that was not a good thing to work through. This year. Well, last year we embarked on a project to demolish our house. In May last year, I left my leased premises and I contracted my business solely back to a home-based environment. I had a purpose-built facility in my backyard. So in May, I retreated to there. It made sense to do so in a time of financial uncertainty, minimize my costs, minimize my risks. It meant that I could control the space that I was in and the rules and conditions around that space. I wasn't at the mercy of someone else who had a differing view to me. And so I could control that level of certainty. To have the builder turn around in January this year and say, we want your site in March. This is mid-January. I'm like, I've got 8 weeks to find somewhere else to work from. I also had 8 weeks to find somewhere to live. there is a process of going, oh my God, how am I going to do this in a rental market, which is very challenging? Trying to find a house to rent with a pet, and we just weren't being considered just because we had a pet. To sit down and think, maybe I could ask somebody who is in my network who I can talk to. And so I went to the network within my church, specifically the men, and said, anyone know of a place to rent? And the minister coming back and just saying, hey, my sister-in-law's got a place that's off market. It comes available in March on this date. It's like, well, the date that's available is the date that I want to move. We're in. So we got into that. That was fantastic. So I just had to ask. And then trying to find a place to move the business into that wasn't expensive. Plenty of entire shops available thanks to COVID. Taking on a shop lease is terrifying. And taking on a lease that was short term. And I started to ask around, who can I co-locate with? Or go to the physios, or go to the chiropractors, or go to the naturopaths. I'll start to look at shared office spaces, and I started to contact agents, and just this whole thing of no one gets back to you. It's so frustrating. And I went through weeks of having no answers. I'm down to the fact to having 2 weeks left to move my business, which is terrifying. And there is a place that I have driven past every day, dropping my child to childcare every day for several years. And I've always thought, that's a great location. I would really like to have my business in there one day. And so I sent them an email, and 15 minutes later, I have a response back saying, how much space do you need? I met with them that day. There's an entire floor available, and the price was great. And my initial thought is, I'll think about it and I'll get back to you. And then inside, punching myself under my chin going, just say yes, to which I did. And we put in train the process of like, I need a lease. Okay, let's talk about the true costs. Oh my God, everything's included. Like, this is too good to be true. It's got to be a trap. Okay, I've got the space. I need a second table. I need another computer. Now that I've got the space, I can do the things that are on the checklist, which I wrote. The certainty of this is what I need to do to move. Step one, find a place. Got through that. I can do the rest of the steps. Life changes after that. Start to sleep better after those things. And again, all I had to do was ask. And I'm really appreciated for my current landlord. You visited my space, who was in a state of disarray when you came to see me. It's the things are flying in order right now.
Yeah, nice. Look, I think firstly, thank you for sharing your struggles and your journey. That's certainly the first part of your share. That's not an easy journey to be part of, especially and it's so interesting when you play in possibility land. It's so possible to experience. It's like, and I'm just going to language this for the first time, so if I stuff it up, we may edit this bit out. But it's almost like, because of the depth of intuition that you have, or that we have, that it's like we can intuitively feel the trauma that what that person has done has caused. And then experience the shame of all of that stuff and feel like, well, I'm completely responsible for that. So I'll overfunction on behalf of their despicable act. And I have no psychological background, so I have no idea if that is normal, but I've certainly seen it play out in my own life, watching other people deal with trauma and overcome trauma as a result of whatever's happened to them. And it can be really, like, I think it's important that we have the right people in our corner when those sorts of things come up, because I think it's really important to learn what is your crap and what is my crap. And then obviously what's our client's stuff going on in the mix as well. And when you are very available emotionally to your clients, they know when you're not. Like you can't fake that stuff anymore, because there's no, they're used to experiencing you unarmored, which means I am centered, I am open, I am safe. And when we armor up because of, stuff's going on externally to our own lives and our own business, they notice it in a heartbeat. And it might be, for me, often people will say, oh, you look tired. And it's not really my natural state, fatigue. So I know when I start getting, you look tired, it's like, oh, what's coming up for me that I'm either not processing or something's going on. Occasionally, yeah, maybe I haven't had enough sleep, but majority of the time, that was the first tell that I had that something wasn't going well, or that I was potentially processing other people's stuff. I guess for you, when you, even for example, if a client comes in with trauma and they're in the depths of it, we can sometimes experience that ourselves because we're in tune with them. Do you ever experience that? And what do you do to kind of detach from their stuff and your stuff?
Yeah. People often do come in and they're in a spin. They may be in the spin down, they may be in the spin up, they just may be spinning. And the simple act of just placing hands on a person and breathing and giving myself space and permission to just say, what does this person need from me today? And mostly I have an appreciation, but there is a natural want to rescue people, to save them from themselves, and to actively encourage myself of, it's not your job to save them. They're not that bird that's fallen out of the nest in your backyard that every time you pick it up and put it in a box and nurse it back to health, that it dies.
Thankfully.
Terrible as that is. What can I actually do for this person today? And often that is just simply being with them, holding them, giving them space, and giving them permission. And if they want to talk about stuff, they can talk about it. I do hear therapists say, I only work in total silence. No, if the person feels the need to verbalize something at that time, they need to say that thing. And if they don't want to say that thing, it's not my duty to go fishing for it either. Just give them the space. I'll give them the space. I'll give them the permission. And we will talk about things from time to time. And sometimes I just say, hey, what's the weather doing today? And that is that distraction, that repatterning of, okay, I'll take you. I'm not deliberately trying to take you out of that mindset, but just think about something that's not your pain right now. Ah, look, something moved. That's great. And just the simple fact of talking to that person and saying, how are you today? I say, I'm fine. Good, great, excellent. I'm really pleased to hear that. I'm really pleased to see you today. It's like, come into my space and just feel safe, feel comfortable. And giving them the permission to say, I think it's your time today. If anything that I do or say makes you feel uncomfortable, you need to tell me and I'll stop whatever that is. I won't always feel that what I'm doing is causing you discomfort. Some discomfort is okay, but you shouldn't feel for the entire session that you're being tortured. You shouldn't feel the need to hold your breath or bite your way through the table. You shouldn't feel scared at any point of this treatment. You shouldn't feel the need to push through and endure something. It's not my intention to harm you or to traumatize you today. So we must talk. you must inform me. It's your duty, and it's my duty to ensure that you are safe, that you're comfortable, and that you get what you came here for today. And for some people, that's just a matter of saying, I think it's a little bit to the left, a little bit up. Oh, that's the spot. Oh, so good. And others just who go saying, what did you just do then? And that's my opportunity to say, did you like it? How did that make you feel? What did you notice? And they'll just say, I just felt something happen. Those who are not in tune with the body, I just felt something happen. Oh, good. Something happened. You don't have to go fishing for the information if you can't verbalize it.
Exactly. And I think it comes back to what you shared at the beginning about helping people, we call it playing for the ownership team, by taking responsibility for their own bodies. And often we don't, like the general public doesn't know how to do that. Often many people don't know how to take responsibility for their own health, their own pain, their own movement, their own gait patterns. It happens unconsciously. The problems happen unconsciously. And so often they expect the resolution to happen unconsciously. And I think by allowing your clients to come on the journey with you in a treatment like that, it actually allows them to take responsibility for their own health. Because so many people are just told, yeah, just suck it up, you'll be right, no pain, no gain. And it's like, well, for some people, that is their map of the world, and rock on if that's how you treat or that's how you enjoy being treated. And also knowing that there's another way, that there's actually a way of people learning how to take responsibility so that they can respond to their body. And when they get pain, rather than resist it, they actually have the opportunity to go, oh, what does that mean? I wonder what's going on there. What if that was an indicator? And I'm sure people would think, what would David say? I probably need to drink some water and take some magnesium and do those stretches he always tells me to do. And I'll make that other appointment he told me I was meant to as well. And I think when we can give our clients tools that actually make sense to them, it tends to bring them along the journey, even more into understanding and being intuitive to their own bodies.
There's often a lot of guilt in seeking help. And that may be help in the form of talk therapy. It may be help from going to see the GP. It may be help from coming to see a massage therapist. And people often say, I wish I'd come to see you sooner. Well, okay, maybe that would have been beneficial, but I think you came to see me at the right time.
Yeah.
Something called you and you responded. You felt the need. Today you felt the need to come in. And that's the kooky side of life of why things work. And it's documented in journals of the waiting room of the hospital is such a powerful place for people getting well. They sought help and they started to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. David, for you over the last sort of 18 months of learning through your big, challenges that have gone on, I guess for you, what did you get to learn about yourself through those challenges?
Yeah, there is a lot of deep-seated stuff. And there is still a lot of fear. And I think overwhelmingly the self-doubt. In March last year, when they were saying you need to close down, prepare to close down for 6 months, it could be a year. Now in Adelaide, in total, it was a month at the start and a week and a half later on. In other states, that has been a year. It could very well have been that. And that is that silent enemy. It could strike at any time. And the talk that people go on, the chatter, the sources that are available to us, which are often very fear driven, which then become controlling And it took me a long time to realize that I was in that pattern of I'm scared, and I'm deliberately reading articles which feed that fear, that confirmation bias. I feel this way, others feel this way. The sources tell me I should feel this way. And yes, I have a right to feel scared. I should feel scared. And it's okay to feel scared now. Now that I feel scared, what should I do about that? I've put my policies and procedures into place. I've purchased the things that I need to purchase. I've practiced going through the routines. What if it happens? This is how I'll respond. At some point, something will happen. It could be someone having a stroke on my table. It could be a fire in the building. It could be COVID coming to my practice. By practicing those things, I cannot prevent them. I can put in place things to minimize these things from happening, but I cannot stop it entirely. And reaching that realization that, okay, I have now done all that I possibly can, and that's all I need to do. That's okay.
It's almost like it's a really powerful strategy for you that I think is great to highlight. Is it's okay to experience the fear. It's okay to look at the risk. It's okay to go deep into the bad, what if it all goes really horribly, terribly, wonderfully, stupendously wrong? Accept that that's a possibility, and then also look for alternative possibilities. You're right, we can't. And I do think that that's one of the challenges that COVID has presented us with, is having to deal with uncertainty. I just have a fundamental belief that if I need toilet paper or mincemeat, I can go 200 meters to my supermarket and get it. Welcome 2020. That's not a guarantee anymore. Glad that I buy who gives a crap toilet paper, because I had 48 rolls of significance in my house, and my daughter was taking them to school because she was so worried about her friends that didn't have toilet paper. Gorgeous heart. And yes, please do, because that's the point. And being able to come back to what are we certain about in here actually allows us to deal with the uncertainty of what is out there. And I think that self-confirming bias, I like that. I absolutely, I think that's welcome to social media. If we want to look for fear, we will find it in a heartbeat. If we want to look for a fight, we can find that in a heartbeat. If we want to look into something like the kindness pandemic, we can look for that in a heartbeat as well. I heard this beautiful analogy this morning that our brain is wired to look for where we put the spotlight. So imagine life is a shed, massive shed with infinite possibilities that we can see, and all the lights are off. And all we see and experience is where we put our torch. And so if we put our torch on the risk, the fear, the bad, how terrible COVID is, the fact that I may not be able to work for 6 to 12 months, what am I going to do for my income? Because obviously that's before any job keeper came in or anything like that. And there is just like mad panic. It's kind of like Kermit the Frog, he's like, ah! It's kind of like the Kermit the Frog stage where we were all in March 2020 in Australia. And so much uncertainty. And then to be able to go, okay, well, what else could I shine the spotlight on? And it's a decision to do that. I think lots of people have made an unconscious decision to stay in fear. And we also have the opportunity to look at, well, what else is out there? Yes, we understand that fear exists. And also look at, well, what are the possibilities of what else can happen here when we shine a light on different areas?
I wrote to my local member yesterday, but it was a rambling letter to him with, I guess heartfelt, as I talked about my responsibility as a citizen in this community to look out for everyone, and the growth of this me first attitude rather than a we first attitude, which really seeing come to light, especially now as we head to along that line of mandating and the removal of privilege, and thinking, how did we come to the point that in order to get people to look out for each other, we have to put them in the naughty corner.
Yeah.
And having worked in community development for so long, of what can we do to strengthen the community resilience, and just seeing the fabric break down. And it is fear driven, absolutely fear driven. I will do this because it's best for me, but what does that mean for everyone else? And I was feeling quite sad yesterday as I reflected on these things. And so I wrote to him. Politicians get a bit of a bad rap in in these challenging days. I don't want their job for quids. They've got to make challenging decisions with not enough information. But yes, we are seeing that despair coming through, and the resistance, the rebellion, the anarchy come down, the rejection of power and authority.
It is such an interesting and unique time to be living in. In so many ways, there is so much challenge with, all sorts of extremist and far right and violence and all sorts of horrible things. And yet there are also, when it's framed differently, like even looking at the reason, we jokingly call Victoria lockdown land. The reason that we're open is because what other people did for one another.
Yeah.
And, 95% of people did the right thing in terms of staying at home, wearing a mask, doing the hard yards so that we could all live well now and have great Christmas. And, we're just as of today, we have no masks anywhere except if we can't social distance. I wore my mask to get my coffee this morning around my neck, just in case, because I'm like, I can whip it up if I need to, because I'm not sure. And I kept looking around going, well, everyone else has got theirs off except the staff. So I'm like, I think that means I can pull it down. And had that conversation, that kind of, do we mask? I don't know. We're holding it. Okay, me too. It's not going to help if I'm holding it in my hand, but at least there's still chaos. And I think that we also have the opportunity to bring joy. What for you, knowing what you know now, is there anything you would tell yourself or do differently in the last 18 months?
I'm not sure that there is, because I'm pretty sure that I'd react similarly if we're to do it all again with a different crisis.
Great honesty.
But it is okay to be scared. Fear does keep us alive, but fear is controlling. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's something that I think we tend to avoid, and by whatever we resist persists. And I think even just giving ourselves permission to go, actually, you know what, it is really scary. I know when it first hit, and I'm bringing my everly optimistic, positivity to the world, and I'm like, just calm down, it's going to be okay. I was uninformed. I had no idea. And I said some comment in one of our Facebook groups, and someone said, it's ideas and words like that will kill people because they'll stop being careful. And it had never occurred to me that my words on a Facebook post could potentially kill people. And that scared me. It scared me in a way that I've never been scared on social media. I've been judged for all sorts of things, and it never bothered me as much as the idea that if I misinformed people, could cause death or injury or harm. And it was like, I backed right away from socials, because I'm like, no, that's way too scary. And I think often we don't necessarily, and I certainly wouldn't have at the time, given myself permission to just be okay, that it's okay to be scared. It's a scary time. Have you ever lived through this before? No. Have you ever tried to home learn and run a business and not be able to go out on the weekend and not see your family? And look, I'm an extrovert, a natural born extrovert who had to live at home for 9 months of 2 years with her family. And thankfully I have a lot of clients that I get to connect with, but it's like, just kind of, rein it in, leash, rein it in until I could talk to someone. I'd be like, all the things. And I think, again, just having that ability to better accept ourselves and just accept how we're feeling in any given moment. And that is okay.
Back in March last year, when I was searching for the right things to do, and it's like, right, I need a room disinfectant because my current disinfectant practices aren't COVID safe. And on one government website, they're saying just use an alcohol-based sanitizer, and on another they're saying you should use bleach. And I had this idea of, what if I combine the two and I could have a super cleaner in my room? And so I've got my metho bottle and I've got my bleach bottle. And I thought, I'll just check the internet to see what it says about mixing alcohol and bleach. I'm glad that I did that, because the end result is chloroform. And I can just imagine spraying this around my room and going,
David quickly writes another policy of what chemicals we won't mix for cleaning the clinic. Yeah, I
There's
know.
plenty of stories of people doing just that.
Oh my goodness. I went online to buy a bolster so that I could wipe that down, as opposed to a pillow that I had to change covers and it wasn't COVID safe. Ended up buying a massage table that everyone thinks is way better. So that's kind of my random COVID purchase. Went online to buy a bolster, ended up buying a table. And also I think we started using it's like Uncle Jack's Distillery. So it's like a distillery in Queensland that makes a like alcohol-based spray. So my clinic room, when I treat occasionally, smells a little bit like cleanliness and an old pub that probably hasn't had the carpets done for a while. I love that. David, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you sharing your journey over the last 18 months and really over the last 5 years and beyond. I think just being able to hear your story is really helpful for our listeners, and especially for those that maybe have never languaged some of the things that we've discussed today or known how to articulate that out loud. It's been really valuable. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Alicia.